I was sidelined by my family's favoritism toward my adopted sister until I never thought I'd be jealous of my sister. Not until she came into our lives, and suddenly I became the background character in my own family story. And the day everything changed? Yeah, none of us saw it coming. My name's Brooke. I'm 27, grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and for most of my life, I was an only child. The straight-A student. The quiet one. The responsible daughter. And honestly, I didn't mind. I had a close relationship with my parents. They came to my soccer games, helped me with science fair projects, made me feel like I mattered. Our little family of 3 worked. Until it didn't. When I was 15, my parents adopted a little girl. Her name was Sophie. She was 5 years old, with huge eyes and curls that bounced when she ran, and a tragic backstory they never fully told me. I remember the first time she walked into our house holding my mom's hand like she'd always belonged. That's what it felt like to them. Like she'd always belonged. To me? It felt like I vanished. At first, I thought I was just being selfish. I told myself I was adjusting, that it was normal to feel replaced after being an only child for so long. But it wasn't just in my head. The attention shifted completely. Every family dinner became about how well Sophie was adjusting. Every milestone, her first school play, her first sleepover, the first time she said I love you unprompted, was treated like a national holiday. My straight-A report card? A passing mention. My college acceptance letter? A congrats followed by Sophie, look at you using a fork. I know how that sounds. Petty. Ugly. But imagine doing everything right and being told to wait your turn for 10 years straight. I became the independent one, the low-maintenance daughter. And that basically meant I was invisible unless something went wrong. And here's the thing, I didn't hate Sophie. She wasn't a brat. She didn't try to steal the spotlight. But when you've spent your entire life feeling like you were enough, and suddenly you're not even noticed, that stuff buries itself in you. I moved out for college and barely looked back. Kept my distance. Came home for holidays and smiled through gritted teeth while my parents showed off Sophie's art projects like she was the next Picasso. By the time Sophie turned 17, I was already living out of state, working my first real job, trying to keep a polite but distant relationship with my family. I figured it would always be that way. Until the phone call. Last December, my dad called. His voice sounded off. Tight. Brooke, he said, can you come home? Something's happened with Sophie. That was the moment everything started to shift. I didn't ask for details right away. The way my dad said something's happened with Sophie was enough to shake me. My parents never called me unless it was a birthday, a holiday, or they needed help resetting their Wi-Fi. A middle of the week, 8 p.m. phone call with a voice like that? I was already grabbing my keys before I hung up. The drive back to Raleigh took 3 hours, and I spent every minute of it bracing for the worst. Car accident. Hospital. Maybe she ran away. I even started to feel guilty, wondering if I'd missed warning signs because I'd been so wrapped up in my own resentment. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same. But the energy was off. Lights low. Curtains closed. It felt like walking into a wake. My mom met me at the door. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. She pulled me into a hug I wasn't expecting. She's upstairs, she whispered. She won't talk to us. I blinked. What happened? Mom looked away. She got into trouble at school. Fighting. Skipping classes. Her boyfriend's not good. Something's changed in her this year. We don't know what to do. I hadn't seen Sophie in nearly a year. Our relationship had become a polite nod at holidays, a casual house school, during dinner. But now, apparently, I was being called in as, what? Reinforcements? The family disappointment turned emotional mediator? I walked up to her room, heart pounding, and knocked. Silence. I tried the handle. Locked. It's me, I said through the door. Brooke. Still nothing. Then, after a long pause. Why are you here? I sighed. Because Mom and Dad think I'm still part of this family. Surprise, right? Another pause. Then the click of the lock. She opened the door just enough for me to see her face, puffy eyes, eyeliner smudged, hair in a messy bun. She didn't look like the girl from the fridge photos anymore. She looked lost. I didn't think you cared, she muttered. I stepped in. Yeah, well, I didn't think anyone cared about me either for the last 10 years. So maybe we're even. She snorted, a sharp, bitter laugh. Guess we're both screw-ups. I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe we're just the only 2 people in this house who know what it feels like to not be heard. That cracked something open. We sat on her bed, in that dim room full of posters and broken fairy lights, and for the first time ever, Sophie talked to me like I was more than a guest in my own family. She told me everything. The pressure to be perfect. The weight of being the miracle. The way Mom and Dad put her on a pedestal she never asked to stand on. How she was scared to mess up because if she wasn't special, she wasn't anything. And in that moment, all the resentment I'd carried for so long? It cracked. Not gone, but changed. Because I realized. While I'd been bitter about being ignored, Sophie had been drowning under the weight of being watched. We were both casualties of the same imbalance, just on opposite ends of it. And that night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I stayed. Not just for dinner. Not just for a night. I stayed with her. The next morning, I found myself cooking breakfast in my parents' kitchen for the first time since high school. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, basic stuff. But when Sophie wandered in, rubbing her eyes and wrapped in a hoodie twice her size, she looked at the plate like I'd just handed her a winning lottery ticket. "Didn't think you'd still be here," she mumbled, sliding into a chair. I set the plate in front of her. "Didn't think you'd let me in." We sat in silence for a bit, just chewing. The kind of silence that isn't awkward, just overdue. Eventually, I asked, "So what's the plan? Are you dropping out, or was that a one-time rebellion?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe I just wanted someone to notice I'm not okay." God, that hit. Because I knew that feeling. The slow, aching invisibility. The desperate craving for someone to ask how you're doing and actually mean it. She looked up at me then. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Were you always this cool?" I almost choked on my coffee. "Definitely not," I said. "You just never stuck around long enough to see it." She grinned. And it was the first real smile I'd seen from her in a long time. Over the next few days, we talked more than we had in a decade. I helped her start a college application she'd been too scared to finish. We rewatched the Pitch Perfect movies and mocked the choreography. She asked me about my job, my crappy ex, why I moved so far away. I told her the truth. All of it. No sugarcoating. And little by little, Sophie started to come back to life. But the real moment, the one that flipped our family dynamic upside down, came 1 week later at Sunday dinner. We were all at the table. Mom had made her famous lasagna. Dad poured the wine. I hadn't seen the four of us sit down together like this in years. And right as we were finishing up, Mom started doing that thing she always did, gushing over Sophie. Her smile. Her potential. How lucky we are to have her. It was all well-meaning, but you could see Sophie stiffen. That same weight settling back onto her shoulders. So I cleared my throat. "Can I say something?" They looked up. Surprised. Like they'd forgotten I had opinions. I gestured between them. "You love Sophie. I get that. She's amazing. But I need you to hear something, because I think it's been getting lost for a long time." Silence. I didn't stop coming home because I was busy. I stopped coming home because I didn't feel like there was room for me anymore. I felt like I had to earn your attention, and even when I did, it was like Sophie's orbit was just stronger. Mom's eyes widened. "Brooke, we didn't. I know. I know you didn't mean to. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt." I looked at Sophie. She was staring down at her hands. "And the worst part?" I added. "Sophie's been hurting too. Because you made her feel like if she wasn't perfect, she'd disappoint you. So you built this spotlight around her, and we both got burned." Dad looked stunned. Mom looked wrecked. But Sophie? She reached over and grabbed my hand. That was the moment. The one I didn't realize I'd needed for over a decade. Not just to be heard, but to share the weight of it. To finally be on the same team. Later that night, Mom came into my room. Knocked first, which was new. "I'm sorry," she said, "for making you feel like you had to shout just to be seen." I nodded. "Thanks. Just, don't let it happen again. Not to either of us." She hugged me. This time, it didn't feel like a guilt hug. It felt real. I stayed in Raleigh for 2 more weeks after that dinner. Not because I had to. Not because they begged. But because, for the first time in years, it felt like home. Things didn't magically fix themselves overnight. Mom still overmommed. Dad still avoided emotions like they were radioactive. But something had cracked open between us. A door that had been shut for so long we forgot what was on the other side. And Sophie? She and I became something I never thought possible, actual sisters. We text now. About dumb things, memes, movies, how she's convinced iced coffee tastes different if you stir it counterclockwise. She asks for advice. Sends me outfit pics. Once, she even called just to say she was having a bad day and needed to hear someone say, "You're not crazy." That used to be me. I used to be the one silently unraveling while everyone asked how Sophie was doing. Now, we check on each other. And when she finally submitted that college application, the one she'd been scared to even open, she called me first. "I did it," she whispered. I almost cried. Not because she'd applied, but because she chose to share the moment with me. That was when I realized I didn't need to compete for my family's love anymore. I didn't need to prove I was valuable. I didn't need the spotlight. I just needed a seat at the table. And now, I've got one. This past Easter, we were all back together again. New dynamic, same chaos. Sophie made deviled eggs that were objectively terrible. Mom made everyone go around and say one thing they were proud of. Usually it was Sophie's time to shine. But when they got to her, she smiled at me first, then said, "I'm proud of Brooke, for coming home, for speaking up, for reminding me it's okay to not be okay." No one said anything for a moment. Then Mom teared up. Dad raised his glass. And me? I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel jealous. I felt seen, finally. So if you've ever felt sidelined in your own family, like the supporting role in a story you were born to be part of, hear this. Sometimes the real shift doesn't come from waiting for them to notice you. Sometimes it comes from speaking up, even if your voice shakes. Even if it means lighting a few quiet fires. Because the truth is, you don't need to be the favorite. You just need to matter. And now, I do.